big here must be veliki. Velika. Jaya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Pasyajade Satarine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare-rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvadakacharya Asatara Sadushi Shiman His Divine Grace Lacy Bhaktivedanta Swaraj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hariva Slava Zarani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi. Om Agana Tivanandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stabitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Vrijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patiranam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitananda Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 14, the three modes of material nature, text number 9. Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Raja Karmani Bharata Yanam Avritya Tutama Pramade Sanjayat Yuta Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Raja Karmani Bharata Yanam Avritya Tutamaha Pramade Sanjayat Yuta. Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Karmani Bharata Jnanamritya Tutama Pramade Sanjayat Yuta. Mataji. Sattvam Sukhe Sanjayati Raja Karmani Bharata Jnanamritya Tutama Pramade Sanjayat Yuta. Sattvam, the mode of goodness. Sukhe, in happiness. Sanjayati, binds. Raja, the mode of passion. Karmani, in fruitive activity. Bharata, O son of Bharata. Jnanam, knowledge. Avritya, covering. To, but. Tamaha, the mode of ignorance. Pramade, in madness. Sanjayati, binds. Uta, it is said. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering one's knowledge, binds one to madness. Purport. Person in the mode of goodness is satisfied by his work or intellectual pursuit, just as a philosopher, scientist, or educator may be engaged in a particular field of knowledge and may be satisfied in that way. A man in the mode of passion may be engaged in fruitive activity. He owns as much as he can and spends for good causes. Sometimes he tries to open hospitals, give to charity institutions, etc. These are the signs of one in the mode of passion. And the mode of ignorance covers knowledge. In the mode of ignorance, whatever one does is neither good for him nor for anyone. So the text again. Sattvam sanjayate gyan sattvam sukhe sanjayati raja karmani bharata jnanam vrityatu tama pramade sanjayat yuta. O son of Bharata, the mode of goodness conditions one to happiness, passion conditions one to fruitive action, and ignorance, covering with one's knowledge, binds one to madness. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyate Siddharne. As it says in the 15th chapter, and we're on the 14th chapter here, Ukramantam siddhim vapi bhunjana bhagunanvita vimudonana pashanti jnana chakshusha. The foolish cannot understand how the living entity quits his body or what kind of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But those whose eyes are trained with knowledge can see all this clearly. So Bhagavad Gita is meant to train our eyes with knowledge. Prabhupada gives the example of seeing the sun. When we look at the sun with our ordinary eyes, we think it's sometimes just a ball of fire, not much bigger than a plate. But when we hear from the authorities, we find out that the sun is much bigger than what appears to our eyes. Similarly, what we see in this world is not, it's there, but it's not what we think is there. Just like a rope and a snake. Someone may tell us that a rope is a snake, but it's actually just a rope. But that doesn't mean there's no rope. It may not be a snake, but it's not what we imagine it to be, that's all. Similarly, where we have our conceptions about this world that we're living in according to the modes of nature that we're situated under. Krishna says in the 17th chapter, verse number 3, Sattvam sanjayate, Tattva sattvat pramara, Tattva sanjayate kama rajasaka. Sattvanurupa sarva sharad bhaviti bharata sharoma yo purusha yo yat sharas eva saha. O son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. So we're seeing things through the modes. Now, if we're in ignorance, we see everything is bad. And we're in passion, we think, well, things could be good here in the material world. And if we're in passion, and if we're in goodness, then we think that actually I know everything. I have it all figured out. And when we're actually seeing transcendentally, we're saying that any situation in the material world has its element of ignorance, and therefore it's bad. Ignorance of the real self, which is really not meant to be absorbed in the activities of material sense gratification, but it's meant to be absorbed in the activities of prema. And unless the soul is absorbed in the activities of prema, then it's either in goodness or in passion or in ignorance, none of which have any real benefit to the soul, except that at least in goodness there's a possibility of understanding that we're in ignorance. If we think we're in goodness, that we're good, then we're in ignorance. Because nothing here in the material world is actually good for the soul, except to find out how to get out of the material world, how to enter into the spiritual world. Perhaps even while we're in this material world, in this material body, we can change our consciousness from material consciousness to spiritual consciousness. Otherwise, acting in any one of the modes of material nature has no real benefit for us. Luckily, we're eternal, so we can waste a lot of time. When you're eternal, you have a lot of time. Either you can use it properly or you can waste it. It just so happens, since we've been in the material world, however long it may have been, we've just wasted our time. Sometimes in goodness, ordvam gacchati sattvasta made tishtati rajasya jaganya guni rittista ado gacchati tamasa. Sometimes we're in goodness and we go up to the heavenly planets and we actually think we're the controllers of the material world, the universe. And sometimes we're in passion, we wind up in a place like Ljubljana, just hoping we can get something to eat and a place to sleep. And sometimes we're in ignorance, and we don't care. Anything that's near us, if we put it in our mouth and try to digest it, and then afterwards go to sleep. We don't care where we sleep, what we eat, as long as we can eat and sleep. Life, that's all life is meant for. And in passion, we try to make some improvement. We try to eat some nice prasadam, cooked in nice ghee or something. And we try to sleep in a nice place, comfortable place. And in goodness, we try to be good. Try to be nice to people, nice to the animals, have nice food, nice air. And in transcendental, we try to be nice to Krishna. We try to revive our relationship with Krishna, and therefore become interested in helping all living entities get out of their material existence and come back to their original relationship with Krishna. Instead of either one is goodness, passion, or ignorance, one's aim in life is to make oneself the center of attention, the center of one is simply self-interested. And in transcendental, Krishna becomes the center of attention, and therefore one becomes an instrument for Krishna. If Krishna is happy, then actually benefit is there, because the happier Krishna becomes, the more bliss there is. And that's all life is meant for, is to become blissful. Could anyone think of anything better than to become blissful? If you had in the market, and you had a box of bliss, and you had another box for goodness and passion and ignorance, what would be productive? Building a big building or making people blissful? And not only blissful, but expanding one's consciousness, one's experience of bliss and wonder is ever increasing, eternally. Can there be any better combination bliss, knowledge, and eternity. Can anyone think of anything better than that? And that's all we promise. We only promise 3 things. We can help you, Krishna can help us realize we're eternal. That wouldn't be so bad to realize we're eternal. Imagine you woke up in the morning, you had nothing to worry about. What would you do? You think, well, a second, I have nothing to worry about. This is too strange. There must be something I must be worrying about. If one realized that everyone was eternal, and therefore there's nothing to lament about, because everyone's eternal. One day or another, perhaps, they'll realize they're eternal, and therefore they'll realize they have nothing to worry about either. So no one really has anything to worry about. And we're by nature aware of reality, that everything is under the control of Krishna, and in the material world we're simply being subjected to karma, under the laws of kala, or time. And therefore the eternal soul is ever changing bodies and situations, trying to find only 3 things: bliss, knowledge, and eternity. It's like a deer. There's a deer in his abdomen, in his belly, a button. It has musk. Did you ever smell musk? Musk. Did you ever smell musk? If you smelled musk, you'd remember. It's really a wonderful smell. So the deer, it's smelling musk all the time. So it's searching the whole forest, trying to find out where the musk is. But it's right in its belly button. Similarly, living entities going all around the material universe, trying to find bliss, knowledge, and eternity. But it's already eternal. And if it just takes shelter of Krishna, it'll realize the knowledge and the eternal bliss portion of itself. And if it doesn't, it'll simply spend its time aimlessly going up and down the material world. Tasyaiva heto prayate teko vido telabhyate yat brahmatam uparita. That those who are intelligent, they realize I'm going up and down, brahmana uparita. They'll realize that everything I'm looking for, happiness in the material world, will automatically come to me according to my past karma, just like no one is looking around here for misery. No one looks at the door and thinks, well, if I put my hand in the door and slam it, I wonder how would that be? I haven't done that for a long time. Let me try it out. Now, if I climbed up to the roof and I jumped off, that would be quite an experience. What can I do to make myself miserable today? Everyone's looking around trying to figure out what can I do to make myself happy. But it doesn't matter what we do to make ourselves happy. We don't become any happier than we were destined to become that day. Just like we had a big feast with gulab-jamins and sandesh, halva and pizza and everything else. We think, well, that would make me happy until we eat it and we overeat and then we become unhappy. So we thought this will make me happy, but it winds up making me unhappy. On the other hand, if we actually become aware of Krishna, who is the source of bliss, then the result is that naturally we become happy. But to become aware of Krishna, we have to accept that we're his servant. And to accept his servants, we have to accept that actually he has a mission in the material world. And it's not meant to make people good. It's not meant to increase passion. And it's not meant to increase ignorance either, which everyone is interested in one of those 3. Nowadays, there's a whole bunch of people, a lot of people, interested in increasing ignorance in the world. And there's a number of people trying to save passion. They're afraid too many people are trying to increase ignorance, so they want to save the passion that they have. And a few people are considered failures in life, useless people. They're trying to increase goodness. but they're embarrassed. They try to hide it because most people, practically everyone's passionate or ignorant, and it's embarrassing to try to increase goodness nowadays. And but all of them are wasting their time. And of course, if we tell people they're transcendental under the spell of ignorance and passion, they'll never accept it because they're in ignorance and passion. How can they understand? Prabhupada said it'll take them 500 years to understand that they're not their body. And the biggest institutions, the biggest so-called learned scholars, they're in the most ignorance. They're the last people who can understand the difference between the body and the soul. Because they're proud of their ignorance. They're propagating ignorance, and they're turning people into ignorant fools, and they're proud of it, that they're most expert at turning people into fools. But we're trying to explain to people that the soul is beyond ignorance, is beyond passion, it's even beyond goodness, it's eternal. And that real knowledge means to dovetail oneself with Krishna's work, not with a work of ignorance, passion, or goodness. And Krishna's work is simply to inform people that not only they're eternal, but there's a super soul in their heart who can guide them and give them the intelligence by which they can know how to relate to people in such a way as to help them become Krishna conscious of Krishna. They can convince people that this material world belongs to Krishna, it's meant for Krishna's service, and Krishna is actually the source of all pleasure and love. He's our best friend. Just like the best friend of a spark is the fire. You can't think of a better friend for the spark than the fire. So similarly, we're little sparks and Krishna's the fire, so he's our best friend. Because as long as we're in Krishna consciousness, we're all right, as much as we're in Krishna consciousness. And as soon as we leave Krishna consciousness, then we start to dim. And we're wondering, what's wrong? Why am I not happy? Why am I insecure? Why am I can't figure things out and confused? Because we're going further away from the fire. And as soon as we start going towards the fire, towards Krishna consciousness, then at once we begin to glow again. We think, wow, I'm top of the world. I must be God. I must be the Supreme. No one could be as good as I am if they weren't the Supreme. And then we think like that. And we think, well, I don't have to be so strict and careful in becoming Krishna conscious. And then gradually we start to dim again. We think, what happened? This world is unfair. God is falling. Something wrong with the process. No, there's something wrong with us. But that's natural because as long as we're subjected to the material modes of material nature, we have a tendency to forget. And we're used to forgetting. So to become Krishna conscious, we have to gradually go through the process. And then we won't get tricked by Maya so easily as before. Maya is saying, actually you're special, you deserve much better than you have, but I'm giving you the best I can for now. But don't worry, your birthday's coming up and you'll get something special on that day. No, we should just patiently try to cultivate Krishna consciousness and gradually dadami buddhi yogam tam. Krishna will give us the understanding when we're acting in ignorance, so we can try at least to go into passion. When we're acting in passion, so at least we can try to be good, try to be a little detached, try to see things properly. And when we're actually trying to do things to please Krishna, trying to do things under the guidance of Krishna and his representatives, so that we can see ourselves being sincere and engaging nicely in Krishna's service, and then expecting Krishna's mercy, that he's going to further enlighten us and help us remain on that platform. And even if there is some problem, because yogas chalati manasa, Maya will not give up on us so easily. Even if we fall back into some mode of material nature, we should know that actually I'm not affected by these modes. I can try to perform devotional service, try to come back at least to goodness, and therefore have some awareness that I didn't really lose anything because I'm eternal. Simply, I have to take advantage of my situation, whatever it is, and try to become Krishna conscious. And gradually, one day, as Prabhupada said, just like a child trying to walk, it may take a few steps and then fall down. But no one expects the child to walk immediately. One expects the child to have some problems walking. But after some time of practice, the child will actually start walking, and then one day he'll dance in ecstasy. Of course, if the child's 50 years old and he still can't walk, parents may get a little impatient. But generally speaking, most children learn to walk after some time. And then gradually they'll learn how to walk very nicely, and one day they'll be able to dance in kirtan. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. 9 precepts of serving Krishna.
Yeah.
Then it be the best. When we serving Krishna, Smaranam, Padasevanam.
Is that a question, or is you quoting a verse?
The best, it is the best.
What's the best? Is that the best?
Yeah. For
Shravanam,
serving
Kirtan.
Sri Krishna.
Which of those 9 is the best?
Yes.
Hearing. Hearing is the first one, because without hearing, we can't perform any of the other ones.
Yes.
Shravanam, Kirtana, Vishnu. But they're all equally good. But they're all depending on hearing. Therefore, Krishna says, touch Shinu, hear from me. Because unless we hear, then we won't know how to perform the other ones. Therefore, hearing always has to be there. Therefore, Prabhupada would recommend that we have classes so we can hear about Krishna. Otherwise, if we leave it up to our mind, we'll be in our bed all day long. We'll be somewhere else. Because the mind doesn't necessarily become attracted to hear that we're not God. No one likes to have their false ego tampered with. It's our most prized possession. It's the only thing that goes with us from life to life is false ego. So, putting ourselves in the center is what we'd like to hear about. How nice we are, how great we are, how wonderful we are, how worthy we are. And so that's what we're always hearing about. People read the newspapers because they want to hear about how bad everyone else is. Because if everyone else is bad, that makes me relatively good. They get depressed if they hear things are too good going on. So the newspapers are full of horrible things that are going on. It makes people feel good. The wars that are going on, thieves that are going on, people think, well, I'm bad, but I'm not as bad as that, so I must be good. But if we hear about Krishna, people don't want to hear about that, because then we hear that we're not in a good situation. We're in the material world, the worst place you could be. 99.99% of the souls are in the spiritual world without any problems, and we're down here with all kinds of problems. We don't like to hear about that because we like to think we're already good. We are good because that's because we're good, but we're not good being in the material world. It's problematic. So we have to hear about it, and then we have to hear about the means to get out of it. How we can actually revive and wake up our spiritual, get Krishna's mercy through service of Him and His devotees, so we can wake up again and go back to the spiritual world, or at least back to spiritual consciousness again. So that's difficult to hear about. The soul is not attracted naturally to that when he's in conditioned life, because he's jaundiced. And Prabhupada said that just like when you have jaundice, then if you take sugar candy, which is a remedy, it tastes bitter. But it's the only cure for jaundice. Well, it's one of the cures for jaundice. So similarly, the soul hearing about Krishna is like a jaundiced patient taking sugar candy. It's sweet, but we take it as something bitter. Why should Krishna be God? Why couldn't I be God? It's not fair. I would make a good God if they just gave me the chance. Why am I in the material world? I didn't do anything wrong. I can't remember doing anything wrong. I'm a victim. How could Krishna be good? All these people are suffering, and he's always on the altar just smiling all the time. Doesn't he have a heart? All he does is dance and eat, have everyone serve him, and he's smiling, and everyone's suffering down here. Now we have to see things properly. That's why we have to hear class. Anything else? Hvala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.